All right. Hi, guys. So we yesterday talked about proofs and, well, the start of logic and using proofs. Today we're going to go back to learning about some lines, some certain type of lines, and some theorems that go along with them. And then we're going to start using, once we know these, we're going to start using the logic stuff that we worked on yesterday to start building some proofs. So there's three main definitions and three main terms that we're going to start off with today. And you will be, so take some notes on this, you will be filling out the Google Slides presentation. There's an activity about names, definitions, and we're going to be using, you'll watch another video later on some certain theorems about parallel and perpendicular lines today. So with that being said, let's just go through them all. So I'm going to go through three different things. I'm going to go through parallel lines, perpendicular lines, and transversals. You guys might have an idea about what these things are, but if not, we're going to go over it again anyway. Okay, so we're going to start off with parallel lines. So parallel lines are defined as two lines are parallel if they are coplanar. If you remember, coplanar means that they are in the same plane, and that they never intersect. So you guys probably know what parallel lines are. You probably have seen many examples of them. But if you've forgotten, so a parallel line might look like this. So let's say I have a line right here. I'm going to call this line A. And then let's say I have another line down here. So these aren't going to be perfectly parallel because I'm not a computer. We're going to call this line B. But these two lines are parallel because in general, they are not. They're on the same plane, so they're on the same horizontal or plane right here, and then they're not going to cross each other. If you look at them, you could extend them in either direction. They're not going to cross each other. Okay. The way that we can mark parallel lines is with an arrow. So if you saw two things like that, that means that these two lines are parallel to each other. And if we want to write a shorthand or symbol for parallel lines, so if we want a symbol, so when you're writing or when you see some things, we would write this as, so I would say line A is parallel to line B. And the way that we can write that is line A is parallel. We just do two basically parallel lines next to each other is parallel to line B. Okay? So if you wanted to tell me that these were parallel, you would write this. And if you saw someone give this to you first, you would know that A and B are parallel. That is how you would interpret that. Okay? So moving on, we're going to talk about perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines you've probably also heard of before. If not, again, that's fine. So two lines are perpendicular. We say that two lines are perpendicular if they form a right angle where they intersect. Okay? So there's plenty of examples of this. So if I have a line here, so this is going to be line C. If I have another line right here, line D, so basically this isn't much different than a coordinate plane. If I have line D, these two lines happen to form a right angle. Okay, so they form a right angle right there. That means that C, line C, and line D are considered perpendicular. Okay, so if I wanted to, again, write that in a symbolic form, I would say that line C is perpendicular, and the symbol we use for perpendicular is just basically an upside down T. And so I'd say line C is perpendicular to line D. Okay? Those are the symbols for that. If you saw this, you would know that they're perpendicular and that they form a right angle. Crucially, they form a right angle, and actually it forms a right angle at all, not just this point, but right here, right there, and right there. So there's four right angles when two perpendicular lines meet. Finally, our third item is called a transversal. This is probably new for you guys. So a transversal is specifically applied to parallel lines, or at least it will be in most of our theorems. So a transversal is any line that intersects two parallel lines. And this transversal forms 8 angles. So I'm going to draw an example of that. So let's say that I have two parallel lines. I'm not going to label them here. So I have two parallel lines. A transversal would be this line right here. It could look like that, it could look like this, it could look like that, wherever it crosses two lines, okay? So I'm gonna call this transversal E, which is fine, there's not really a symbol for it, so don't worry about that. But the crucial part about transversals and a lot of things that we're going to be working on involve these angles right here. And they have special names and we'll go over that later. But you should see that it forms 8 angles. So it forms an angle here, forms an angle here, forms an angle here, one here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. Now there's some special angle pairs that are formed by this transversal and the two parallel lines. And we're going to learn about those later. But for now, all you need to know is that transversal is crossing two parallel lines and that it forms 8 angles. And those 8 angles have special theorems that tell us whether or not they're congruent. We're going to learn about those later, but for now, that is what you need to know about parallel lines, perpendicular lines, and transversals. So right now you should go to the next slide and match up the definition to the name of the item, and then you can move on and we'll learn some more about some theorems about parallel and perpendicular lines.